We are live. I am Dennis Wirth with Funny Like Clown Podcast, November 27th, 2019. It's episode 42, cruising right along. As always, Funny Like Clown Podcast brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. For the spicy, sweet, savory taste at game time, there's only one G Vegas available at www.gvegas.webs.com. And we are about to discuss a comedy icon. See, they got legends and they got icons, and this guy's an icon apparently. Chris Rock. And to do that, I have on the phone comedian from New Hampshire, Thomas Mitchell. Tom, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. How's New Hampshire treating you?
New Hampshire's treating me very well. You know, voted funniest guy in New Hampshire, so treating me well. No complaints.
So we got the funniest guy in New Hampshire talking about one of the funniest guys of all time, Chris Rock. Well, what made you choose him?
You know, I just really love his stuff. I think he's kind of like a George Carlin and Richard Pryor rolled into one, and I think he's one of the funniest guys out there today.
Yeah, he's definitely today's comic. I mean, you got the legends, and then like he's a new wave of legends, I guess you'd say. But
so is that what you mean? Like, there's a difference between a legend and an icon? Icon is present day type thing?
Yeah, I guess the legends I think are in a class of their own. Even if funnier comics come along, you're always going to look to the older guys as they're the one who paved the way.
Yeah, all right.
An icon's kind of the next generation of like big wave comics who hit it big, in the next big wave where, they said back in the day, if you wanted to be a comedian, you had to quit your job and move to either New York or LA. You really had to go for it, Nowadays, you keep your day job and you go down to the corner, comedy store and you give it a try, You don't have to really risk nothing, where those guys really had to risk their whole lives to be comedians, but nowadays it's so big you don't have to.
Yeah.
But let's see. He started working as a comic, doing supporting roles, and he went on to act, write, and produce and direct some movies. But I guess his big break came after doing stand-up for a while. He was part of the cast of the early '90s Saturday Night Live. Do you remember him on there?
Yes, he was. I remember actually he was on Saturday Night Live, and then he was also doing In Living Color. Right around the same time.
He did, right. Well, he was on
Saturday Night Live.
He was on Saturday Night Live for a few seasons. Then he was going to quit. When they heard he was going to quit, they ended up firing him. And then he did 6 episodes in Living Color, and then In Living Color ended up getting canceled. So
yeah, it was not a good career choice there, because In Living Color got canceled right after he started doing
that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it all turned out good in the end, though, right?
Well, he definitely landed on his feet, that's for sure. A lot of HBO specials. I think Eddie Murphy kind of mentored him early.
Yeah,
was in like Beverly Hills Cop or something like that.
Beverly Hills Cop 2 he was in,
his first movie roles.
But
I think he really took off when he did those HBO specials.
On which ones?
Those HBO specials.
That's what he's most known for, I think. Yeah, was his HBO. But that's kind of a stepping stone. That's why they said Eddie Murphy hasn't done. I mean, he's going to start doing them now. He hasn't done a comedy special in how long? And he said, he used that as a stepping stone to get to acting. And once he was acting, he didn't want to do the stand-up. But he's about to make.
Although he's going back out on tour too, I think.
Yeah, he is. But how many years has it been since it was the '80s since the last time he put out a stand-up thing?
Yeah, it's got to be 30 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Back out again.
But let's see, in 2001, Chris Rock did Down to Earth. 2003 did Head of the State. 2005, The Longest Yard. 2005 to 2012, the Madagascar series. 2010, Grown Ups. 2013, Grown Ups 2. And 2014, Tops 5. Have you seen any of him in any of those movies, or do you have a favorite of those?
I have a 7-year-old son, so I have definitely seen the Madagascar.
I figured that was a given, right? My kid was the Toy Story series, but what do you remember about him in Madagascar?
Well, he's the zebra, so him and Ben Stiller, who's the lion, basically were the stars of that show. Although those movies. Although I'll say the penguins kind of steal the scene all the time we're in there. But, he's the zebra guy. Him and Ben Stiller, the leads in those movies, they're just hysterical. I mean, they're really hysterical in there.
That's a safe move, too, if you're a comic, if you do a cartoon, because they're almost a guaranteed hit. Tim Allen with Toy Stories, Eddie Murphy did Shrek, and, Mike Myers did Shrek, the B movie, Jerry Seinfeld. Is that just a safe move? You're guaranteed a hit if you do a cartoon, you think?
I think if you hook up with Disney, Pixar, or DreamWorks,
Anything you
and
do,
probably
right?
and Universal, right? You get those big four guys there. Everything they do with those animations seems to hit it.
Yeah, those are the big companies. You're at the top of your game if you're working with those companies.
Yes.
Then he went on in 2005 to 2009 to do a series called Everybody Hates Chris, based on his childhood. Have you seen any of those?
Yeah, those were great.
What can you tell me about those?
I don't know how long that was on the air for, but that was a great show. In fact, that was one of the last sitcoms that I really remember watching. Since then, I haven't really watched any sitcoms.
So tell us a little bit about it. What was it like? I mean, it was about his childhood, but I mean, what was it like? A good times, or was it a...
you know, living in the projects. So he was the narrator. He was not, he was a narrator.
Oh, so he didn't act in it. He just told you the story.
Yeah, there's an actor playing a young Chris Rock. Like a child actor. Probably like 10 to 12 years old. So it was kind of, I don't think it was completely autobiographical, but it definitely was based on his life. Growing up poor, struggling, mom and dad working. He was the narrator in it. So he didn't appear in it, but he was a narrator. So,
right. So was it an edgy show, or was it more geared toward family and children, or?
I think it was both. It was definitely geared toward family and children, no doubt about it. There's a brother in there, in the neighborhood and all that, but it definitely was edgy,
Because he's known as an edgy comic, but I know, when you do kid stuff, you can't always do that because you're not appealing to that audience, yeah.
I wouldn't say that was a kid show, though.
No, okay, so it wasn't just for kids, it was adults too, yeah?
Yeah, it was more, I wouldn't say necessarily adults, but I don't think you would let young children watch that.
Right. Well, I remember Andrew Dice Clay, he had taken a step back and he did, I forget the Bless This House, whatever it was called. He did about 6 episodes and they wouldn't let him be dirty, which was what his fans tuned in for. They ended up canceling the show. They wouldn't accept him working clean, Well,
Chris Rock, he does work dirty a lot, but in this show, Chris, I think, is very intelligent and smart and flat out funny.
He's creative enough, he can work around.
He can be either way,
Right.
So the show is excellent. I think, it ran a couple seasons.
Okay, so he hosted the 77th and 88th Academy Awards, which I almost thought that was a risky move because you're following only the best of the best get to host those shows, and you're going to be compared to the other people who hosted them. Do you think that's a smart move in comedy, or?
Well, actually, for the comics that did that I thought were really funny, Chris Rock, David Letterman, and Ricky Gervais, I think if I'm pronouncing his name right, it didn't seem to really go that well for them. I thought the shows were hysterical,
right?
But it's like the actors in the Academy didn't like it. As I recall, Chris Rock, so he was insulting some of the actors. He was hysterical doing it.
Right.
He even did it to himself. He said, if you can't get Denzel Washington for a role, you could get Chris Rock.
Yeah, that's what they said. They wanted to add some edge to the Academy Awards, and they didn't realize how much edge they were getting when they booked the guy. It was they were trying to get the younger generation involved, but they think they get in deeper than they wanted to.
They always say that. The
Well,
Academy always says that every 5 years, and they book someone who is edgier, and then they don't like it.
Yeah.
It's like because if you're going to book someone edgy, they're going to make fun of the show itself, and they don't like that.
Well, I think in promoting it, he said the average white man don't watch the Academy Awards, saying it was only like gay people and black people that watched it was their audience, and they didn't like that at all.
What he said was the average white heterosexual.
That's what it was. Okay.
Academy Awards.
And then, that's not their cup of tea talking like that, so I think he offended them, but that's what they wanted. They wanted edgy, he gave it to them, and no, we don't want that. Well,
you can't, you book shows, I book shows, you can't book a comic, and then you have to know their act and book them for the right venue.
You gotta know.
You X, you can't do Y, you can't do Z. You know what? You gotta book them, and you have to know the act and book them in the right venue.
Yeah, they can fit the show.
Work out, that's the Academy's fault.
Yeah, exactly. So, he himself, he went on to win 4 Emmys and 3 Grammys, which, we'd take one of those, wouldn't we, Tom?
I would take any of them. I'll rummage through his garbage to find one of the
Yeah, that was something. Well, actually, I visited Sam Kinnison's brother's house, and I did get to hold Sam Kinnison's Grammy Award, so that was cool. I can say I've held one, okay, so. But, so now we're going to, he did a series of acclaimed HBO specials, and, now here's the one who got me, okay? Now we got to discuss this one. He was voted the 5th greatest comedian of all time by Comedy Central. Would you agree with that, or?
The 5th of all time?
Yes.
Well, it's tough to say. A few years ago, maybe not, but I think he's moving up the list, so I guess I could see that.
That's what I get from the legends to the icons, I was insulted when I read that. I'm like, 5th? Are you kidding me? But
but you bring up a good point about legend versus icon. If you look at music, right, the legends are the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Zeppelin, right? You could get groups out today, and I guess the Beatles are probably in a class by themselves, but you get a group out today that puts on a string of hits, they're never going to be considered as great as,
no matter what they do, right? Yeah.
So it's kind of like Chris Rock, like you said, everyone looks at Carlin and Pryor, and they're, Woody Allen and say, hey, you're never going to be as clever as those guys, but he is. I mean, he is.
I tried to do my top 5 Mount Rushmore was Dangerfield, Pryor, Carlin, Steve Martin, and Bill Cosby. So, I mean, now you're telling me Chris Rock is funnier than those 5.
I tell you, he's up there.
But then I thought about it, the 20-year-old kids of today, they weren't exposed to Dangerfield, Pryor, Carlin, Martin, and Cosby. So, I mean, 20 years from now, Chris Rock, he's going to be one of the legends, because that's who these kids were exposed to. They were never exposed to the people we grew up on. So that was the way I looked at it. So I said, well, maybe you could put them in the top 5 for the kids of today because they weren't exposed to, the comedians we grew up with,
Well, look at it this way. If you were going to have a whole bunch of people list the top, say, 10 to 15, he would probably always be up there. While some of those others maybe not.
Well, it'd be like us telling our parents Pryor and Carlin are the greatest of all time, and them laughing and saying, Groucho Marx or Lucille Ball. How do you touch those? I mean, it's who you grew up with.
Yeah, that's exactly true. It is who you grew up with.
I guess you could put him in the top 5. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's see. He grew up in a mostly white neighborhood, and he said he got picked out a lot on the bus, which caused him to drop out of high school and ended up getting his GED. Now, do you think comedy's a way for a lot of comics to deal with their pain?
Oh yeah, I think if you got to have something. You can still have a great life, but you have to have a couple issues, and that I think is you got to reflect on that and use that in your material.
Right, you got to laugh about your pain, right?
You don't have to be in pain all the time, but you got to have something that causes you
pain.
Yeah,
you have to have something to give him, right? He began stand-up in 1984 at Catch a Rising Star. He earned small roles in I'm Gonna Get You Sucker and Miami Vice, which I never knew he was in Miami Vice, but apparently he was.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, after seeing him in a nightclub, Eddie Murphy befriended him and gave him a role in Beverly Hills Cop 2, as we just discussed. Now, he was on Saturday Night Live with a cast of Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider, and David Spade. I mean, now all those guys went on to make it big. I mean, you think it's just a given if you make Saturday Night Live that it's just a given you're going to be a star?
No, I don't think so. I think this is your selective cherry picking. He was on with those guys. There are probably a lot of other guys on at the same time. You don't remember.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, but that's one heck of a cast right there. I'll tell you, man. I mean, yes,
it is.
That's some guys to be rubbing elbows with. Now we talked about it. He left Saturday Night Live, did 6 episodes of In Living Color. That got canceled, which led to his first HBO special. It was a half-hour special, which the young comics, they get a half hour just to show their stuff before you're known. And it was called Big Ass Jokes. Do you remember that one or no?
I don't remember the specifics of any one particular HBO series special, but boy, I saw a lot of them, and man, it was funny.
Well, that one led to his next full special, Bringing the Pain, and that was the special that launched him to megastar status. Do you remember that one, Bringing the Pain?
Yes, I do. I do.
Well, what are some of your favorite jokes from that one you remember?
Well, he was talking about racism, and he was saying, the biggest racists, he says, are black people, because what white people don't like about black people hate that even more.
Right.
And he was just saying, you can't have a good time, a black person can't have a good time without some N-word guy screwing it up. Like you can't go to the opening of a movie theater because there'll be some N-word guy there shooting it up.
It's true.
He definitely takes something that means something and is important to him and puts it in his act.
Now, I don't know if it was that special, but one of the funniest ones I heard him say was he talked about Mandela at the end. Was that the one? He talked about Nelson Mandela, that he was a captive of war in another country and they beat him and tortured him every day. Then after 20 years of being beaten and tortured, they released him. He went home to live with his wife, and 6 months later, he killed himself. He's like, that man got tortured, he got beaten, he got out, he lived with his wife for 6 months and said, I can't take this shit anymore, and killed. That was one of the funniest lines ever.
I don't know if that was that special, but yeah, I remember.
I'll take the beating and torture, but I can't live with this bitch. Was basically why. I don't know. To me, that was comical, but.
I also remember when O.J. Simpson trial was going on. He had an HBO special there, and he was talking about how, there's no, people say there's no reason to kill your wife, to kill the woman. There's no reason. He goes, there's a reason to do everything. There's a reason to push an old man in a wheelchair down a flight of stairs, but you just don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's like, and it's true. It's funny and it's true. There is a reason to do stuff, but
you just don't do it. Exactly right.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see. He was a commentator on Comedy Central's Politically Incorrect during the 1996 presidential election. Now, I found early on in my career, I tried to do some political jokes, and man, people are sensitive about that, and I cut them out. Do you think political humor is a smart thing to do, or?
Well, I think if it means something to you and it connects with you, you should do it. So I think it is a smart thing to do. I think if you're just doing it to try and be funny, then it isn't going to work. But if it means something to you, the audience will sense that connection. So I'd say you got to do it if it means something to you.
I found if you do it, you can't pick a side because you're alienating half of the audience. You got to tell jokes about both sides. If you pick a side, I found early I got in some trouble with that. I said I'm dropping the political jokes. I ain't dealing with this. Yeah, I guess when you're on Chris Rock's stage, you got writers and you can do whatever you want, but.
I don't remember him being the most political guy as much as I remember him, talking about stuff that means something to him. Racism, relationships.
Yeah, the real life stuff. Like they say the real life stuff's much funnier than anything you can make up. Because you lived it.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's see. He went on to do some more HBO specials: Bigger and Blacker, Never Scared, Kill the Messenger. And then he took like a bunch of years off, and Netflix, which seems to be the big thing for comedians now, offered him $40 million an episode to do some more stand-up, and he released one called Tambourine. And I know Eddie Murphy, he's actually signed on with Netflix, too, to do his comeback movies. Do you think the Internet's the way to go from now on? Is it killing TV, or?
I think, so you're saying Netflix is the Internet, not TV? I guess I think now people look at it as saying...
Well, you don't watch it on your TV. You watch it on your cell phone or your tablet, or it's an online, thing. You don't watch it on television.
Well, Netflix, a lot of people watch on television.
Do they?
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought it was an online thing. You had to watch it online.
Well, hold on. Yeah, you can cut the cord if you've got the internet. You're right. It is internet, but I watch it on my TV all the time. I watch Netflix. So I think Netflix and even now YouTube to a degree and all these other things, there's apps that come up on your smart TV. I think that is TV. I don't think there's a difference now between the major networks and Netflix and Disney Plus.
It's kind of, you mentioned like YouTube and the Karate Kid, and I know Disney now, they got the Mandalorian, the new Star Wars series where, if you had TV, it's included in your package. Now these, you have to go and pay extra on top of your package to watch them. So, is paying for, extra comedy a part of the thing that's going to be happening, or?
Okay, so you put it that way, I will say yes. You don't get the commercials, and I think people are willing to pay the $10 a month.
Willing to pay the extra. I think that's the next wave of comedy. I think TV is going to be a thing of the past soon, and everybody's going to be watching on their computer.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
But let's see. He did some more movies. Dogma, where he played an angel. Did you see that one?
What was the name of that one?
Dogma.
I remember that.
It was Dogma. I remember I watched it years ago. I don't remember much about it. Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley. He was in that. I remember seeing that movie. I remember Chris Farley was funny as heck. He must have had a smaller role. I don't remember him in it.
I didn't see that movie. I didn't see that one.
No, Lethal Weapon 4. Did you see that one?
I did not see that one.
I know Lethal Weapon was like bigger than big back in the time when he did those. That was his really his coming together.
Jackie Chan? Oh, was that Jackie Chan, the Lethal Weapon? No.
No, that was Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, Lethal Weapon.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I probably did see that. I think I did see that.
I know, these movies are way back when. People probably seen them when we forgot about them, right?
Yeah, I know. Jeez, yeah. You're talking probably 30 years ago.
Right, yeah. Then he took a dab at some music videos. He put out a music video called Your Mother's Got a Big Head and Champagne. Have you heard any of his music, or...?
I have not heard any of his.
I didn't even know. I would have thought, you would have learned from it when Eddie Murphy put out Party All the Time. It was voted one of the worst songs ever. You think comedians would have learned, but apparently not.
Yeah, that was not exactly the best career movie.
After that, he did some Broadway, which, I mean, everybody's heard Broadway, and you always want to do it, I guess. I mean, uh, I did Broadway Comedy Club down in New York, and I've been trying to get in Caroline's, which is right on Broadway. But I mean, have you ever done any shows down in New York, or?
I've done Comic Strip Live a couple times. You know,
Really?
it was probably 20 years ago, but I was down there a couple times.
Yeah, you made the trek down there. It's always cool just to say you did it, you know.
I agree.
I did what? Dangerfields and the Gotham. I got those two under my belt, so I've done
There you go.
a few. So let's see. He said he was influenced. I think he named every comic alive, but I mean, I took some. He was influenced by Red Fox, Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor, Sam Kinison, Rodney Dangerfield, Eddie Murphy, and Carlin. Who are some of the guys who inspired you to want to do comedy?
Say that again?
Who are some of the people who inspired you to want to try comedy?
I would. Well, I mean, it's going to sound weird because I'm nowhere near the level that they ever were. But guys like George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Robert Klein, I mean, those are watching them a lot.
Yeah,
what? Like those HBO specials or a movie special that they did, like Richard Pryor, had his, stand-up movie theater shows. So, yeah, it was those guys. It's like, but that's why you think they're the Mount Rushmore, because
the Sunset Strip,
huge when you were starting out.
Yeah, what was it? Richard Pryor live on the Sunset Strip, and Carlin holds the record for most HBO specials for comedy. So, those are the guys you grew up on. That's who'd inspire you, I guess, right?
Yeah, Carlin with his HBO specials, Robert Klein with his HBO specials, and you're right, live at the Sunset Strip with Richard Pryor. Yeah, you grow up with that stuff. That kind of puts the bug in your mind,
Yeah, it gives you the itch to try it, but let's say things you didn't know about Richard Pryor. He's big into racial profiling, which I didn't know. He was on an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld, and actually, while they were driving to the coffee shop, they got pulled over by the police, and he said as a joke to Jerry, "If I wasn't with you, I'd be scared." Meaning, like, Jerry was white, and if he was alone, he'd be a black guy getting pulled over, but
That's right. I think Jerry was driving, they got pulled over, and he said something like that. He goes, "I'm famous," and I'm
yeah, right. I'm famous, and I'm still scared, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the fans. The fans chimed in. I'll tell you what the fans had to say, and just give me your opinion on them. Sound good?
All right.
All right. P.J. Brown put in the cheapest man bit. Have you heard that one or no?
The cheapest man bit. I have not heard that one.
I haven't heard that one. Jeremy Paddock writes in, "Fuck the kids."
I like the sound of that, David.
Geez, I'm thinking that was something to do with Jerry Lewis, where the kids never saw any money or something like that from him. I think that was one of the routines he did, where they get millions of dollars for these kids, with diseases, but the kids never end up with the money,
They never get helped by it.
That was the thing. Michael Buster McMahon writes in, "The first time I saw him, and I'm gonna get you, sucker. How much of the ribs? You got changed for 100. I said this guy needs to be in more things. Did you see I'm gonna get you, sucker, or no?"
I did not see that.
I saw that when I was a young kid, and for the life of me, I can't remember like 10% of it. I guess I watch movies and forget them. I don't know.
See, I've seen the Chris Rock stuff that I can watch in the convenience and comfort of my own home.
Your own home. There
his
you
HBO
go.
specials, his stand-up specials.
Let's see. Michelle Mortensen writes in, "I have two, neither of which is from his stand-up. The first is Everybody Hates Chris, which Rock wrote and narrated, which you already said. When Grandpa Genie, I guess was Jimmy Walker played that, passes away at the dinner table. I had just lost my mother, and I cried and laughed at the episode for an hour. Do you remember Jimmy Walker being on an episode or no?"
I do remember him being on there, yeah.
He passed away at the dinner table, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. The second is his performance in Dogma, where he plays an angel. My daughter at 15 and her friends wanted to see the movie, as it was filmed in Jersey, near where we lived. They were all underage, and it was rated R, so I was their guardian and bought them all tickets. So, now we already said, I think I saw Dogma on TV. He was in there with a couple other stars. I was surprised who was in it with him. Steve Gamlin writes in Pookie. Do you know what Pookie means?
Pookie? No, I don't.
You got me on that one, too. All right.
Are you making up these words, or what?
Yeah, I'm reading what they're writing here. Trent Wells writes in, there's not enough time for this. Yeah, all right. Meaning he's done so much, we ain't got time for this. All right. I watched Bringing on the Pain so many times I have it memorized. I've done that with Sam Kinison CDs. I can say his jokes word for word of listen to him so many times. You ever have a tape like that you wore out, you listen to it so many times?
Yes, yeah, I had a lot of Bill Cosby records as a kid.
Okay, yeah.
But I'll tell you, Bringing on the Pain is hysterically funny, man. He talks about, I think it's Bringing on the Pain, how, no white person would trade places with him as a black man, and he's rich.
Even with all the money he's got.
Right. Now, he goes, somewhere in this audience is a one-legged white busboy, and is not going to would not trade places with me. He'd be there going, well, I'm going to see how this white thing pans out. I'm riding this one forever. I remember, and he...
It's true stuff, too, yeah.
It means something to him, so it connects.
Let's see. Robert Glancy wrote in, he was standing outside the Improv and talking with him. Have you ever done like a big show where, been on a show where a big star popped in and did a guest spot?
Yes, I was down at the Comedy Connection in Faneuil Hall, and Bobcat Goldthwait came in there.
Really?
Yeah, it was
This
very
one
cool,
you weren't expecting, yeah.
And never seen him off stage. You're thinking he's going to talk in that weird voice, and everything. And
yeah.
he was a normal guy and actually very humble. Shook all the comics' hands, hung out, and yeah, it was really cool. And then, of course, when he jumps on stage, it's a ball of energy.
Yeah,
but it was
right,
really cool off stage.
You realize how the pros get to be pros. When I did the Gotham, I was in the green room, and he was on the early show, and I was on the late show. I passed him in the green room. I met Jerry Seinfeld and Jim Gaffigan. And
cool.
Jerry was the coolest cat ever, and Gaffigan was a prick. If you ever meet him, the guy's a prick.
Really?
Yeah.
What did he do?
He was, Jerry was cool with everybody, and he's just looking around like, I'm getting recognized, I gotta get out, I'm getting recognized, I gotta get out of here. And he just darted through the crowd and went out. And I was down there with Rob Steen and a few other friends, and they seen him come out, and they're like, hey, Jim, I'm busy, guys, I gotta go. I was like, didn't have time for nobody. Apparently just didn't want nothing to do with it. But I guess when you're on that level, who knows, right?
I also got Larry the Cable Guy. So Jerry Caruso opened for him once, and I went down there. And he was like, oh, yeah. He's like, I remember hanging out with my friends when they were doing comedy, and I'd go out and hang at their shows. And then later on, I opened for him.
Oh, you opened up for Larry the Cable Guy?
Backstage. Pardon?
You opened for Larry the Cable Guy?
Yeah, in Manchester, New Hampshire, yeah.
Really? What was he like?
A nice guy.
Was he a nice
Before
guy?
The show, he was, yeah, he was a great guy. He probably took at least 10, 15 minutes just hanging out talking with me before the show. He's like, hey, he goes, you know what? He goes, don't worry. He goes, although these people are here for me, he goes, they're going to love you. He goes, all my crowds are always great crowds. They're going to love you. And he was really putting me at ease, and he was just, hanging out.
Yeah, that's really cool when they don't forget where they came from. Some forget where they came from and some don't. So,
yeah.
Let's
normal
see.
Normal guy.
Rodney Wirth, no relation to me, writes in the MTV half-hour comedy hour in the late 80s. He did about an old white woman watching him from the window. She dialed 9-1 and just waited for him to do something. Okay. Jonathan Nelson writes in, how not to get your ass kicked by the police. That must have been one of his routines.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bobby McCumber, I think each bullet should cost $5,000. If each bullet was $5,000, you'd have no more innocent bystanders. That's a true story, I guess, right? One way to solve the gun crime. Let's see. Move Davis, my uncle will kill his white wife, Donna. Any idea what that means?
I don't remember that one, man.
I hope that's not a threat, man. I don't know if she's serious or it's a joke. All right. Let's see. Randy Kid Rank Fabian. Who is you to take the big piece of chicken from Daddy?
Oh, man.
That sounds like something I grew up with, man. My dad always got first shot at the food at the dinner table. You didn't dare go first, You knew he was getting first take, and then we got what was left over. So I could see that being a joke.
Chris Rock has so much material, it's just, and so much A-list material. It's hard to remember it all.
Everything, right? Yeah.
I know your fans are calling these, and I'll say one was like, I remember he was talking about relationships, and he said he got busted. He said his wife or girlfriend went through his wallet and found 2 condoms there out of a pack of 3. And he goes, she just kept going to him like, if you tell me the truth, it'll be all right. He's like, I'm not a cheater. I wouldn't cheat. She's like, just tell me the truth, and it'll be all right.
Sure.
If you just tell me, I'll let it go. And he goes, oh, all right, I did cheat on you. She's like, how could you cheat on me?
Yeah, that's the bait. You know better than that.
He goes, I didn't know Jack until you just told me.
All right, we're getting toward the end of the episode here. I end off every episode with trivia. And you think you know your heroes until you hit trivia. I'll tell you, I'm going to ask you 3 trivia questions about Chris Rock. Nobody's ever gone 3 for 3. Only a couple of people have gone 2 for 3. Most go 1 for 3 or 0 for 3. But you ready for some trivia?
Is it multiple choice?
Well, no, I'm going to ask you a question and you got to give the answer.
Okay.
All right.
This sounds difficult.
Here we go. Chris Rock played a crack addict in what movie?
I'm going to get you, sucker.
No, it was New Jack City.
Oh, man.
Who that one? All right. All right. You're 0 for 1. Let's go. He voiced the doll of what NBA player back in some 80s commercials?
Penny Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway. You're 1 for 2. All right. So this is the tiebreaker right there. All right. He directed and appeared in what band's music video? Popular band from the 80s.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right. 2 for 3. You did better than most. Pretty good, Tom.
All right.
All right. Before you go, I'll give you the stage here. You being a fan of Chris Rock, what would you want other people to know about him?
I just think that he's doing stuff that connects to him, that means something to him, and that the audience senses that, so it's funny. So, if anyone's thinking of doing comedy there, it's got to be something that means something to you, and it connects out there. And he can be dirty sometimes, he can be clean, but he's always funny.
That's good advice, man. Be who you are in anything you do in life, right?
Yep.
All right, well, thanks for being on the show. I wish you luck in the future up there in New Hampshire. I hope you keep going strong, and I hope to catch you soon on the scene.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on Funny Like a Clown podcast. We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, comedian Thomas Mitchell up there in New Hampshire voted New Hampshire's best. Talking about one of the best of all time, Chris Rock. And, man, I guess, you got to put him in if you did, the people I grew up with, the Rodney Dangerfields, the Carlins, and the Pryors and all that. But, if you did from the 1990s, Mount Rushmore from that time, certainly I'll put Chris Rock in my top 5 because, there's the people who paved the way, and then there's this generation's legends. He's definitely part of this generation's legends. I want to thank you for tuning in, Funny Like Clown podcast. I am your host, Dennis Wirth, and hey, we're having fun. I'm trying to boost the show here. We'll be getting on a few new venues, but keep tuning in. We're having guests on, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep laughing because laughter is the best medicine. Good night.